Why do you think millennials spend so much money on tourism?
Because we'd probably rather like enjoy living our life than getting the 9-to-5 job, getting married, getting kids, getting a mortgage, getting a car and dying.
Maybe you should not call it the generation Y, but like the generation that were born in a period where everything changed.
Do you think that millennials are more similar than, say, our parents were to other countries?
Might be, yeah.
Why do you think that would be?
Well, because of globalization, this trend makes people travel more. Mostly borders is open and you going to куда ты хочешь, wherever you want.
More internet to see places like we don't know for 100 years.
I think now it's just made so easy.
There's information just at the click of your fingers, maybe.
The internet, you see more of the world without actually being there.
I think social media has allowed a lot of people to feel more connected to the world globally. I've been to a few countries just because I'll be on Instagram and be like, yo, that looks beautiful, or that looks cool. You see a video or something like that.
The fact that everything is so open and so available to us at this moment make us look at Thailand as not that far a destination, that we can go there.
Before you go to a place now, you can use Google Street View and you can see everything that's in that place already. You know what the top attractions are, you know, and even me today, I was like walking around like staring at my phone like, okay, I need to turn left in like 5 seconds.
I definitely think just being from the technology era, the convenience of accessing information is definitely doing a lot for our generation.
Instead of accepting things, we're almost sort of rebellious in it. And I think you ask my parents when they were this age, they'd probably say the same thing for different reasons. But I think ours is more of this unified change because of the level of communication that we can all have.
So I feel like back then it's like you heard from your parents what they said was gold, and now it's like we'll Google like, oh, that's not right.
Yeah,
it's like a lot more information.
Access
you can fact
to
check
information,
everything.
Yeah.
I can get on Google and I can get an answer if I want to. I don't have to wait for a book. Really, that access to that information, or what it's like being another person or growing up in another culture, that information is out there.
It's hard to pick what is real. Even some documentaries with their cool scenes and things like that, you really have to double check everything, which is unfortunate in the age of information that we can't get good information.
But in meeting people, I've also realized that they're kind and they are trustworthy, because when you hear the news, you just hear about how terrible this place is or how terrible that is, and you actually find out that it's not true at all.
Now we have so much information and media, it's like you see all the extra oppression that you didn't see, back in the day. So I feel like people are more aware of it now. In exchange, they want to be more open to everything else.
The world is shrinking as opposed to growing. The internet is bringing everything closer. So the more we can understand everyone else, the better we can progress as a society.
We do have a generation that I think we have raised with a great degree of entitlement.
The millennials don't get off the couch very often.
We're told that they can have anything they want in life just because they want it.
So-called millennials don't have a strong work ethic, motivation.
Millennials are the worst. The word millennial is synonymous with lazy and selfish.
Yes, makes me cringe.
I try not to be selfish, but I guess sometimes you just want to seek your own happiness and tend to forget about other people.
I really never got the negativity to it or why it came about. I mean, maybe we just do stupid shit and we broadcast it on TV.
Well, yeah, you see it a lot more often now.
Yeah,
we film everything and throw it on Instagram.
It's got to be what it is. I mean, people back in the day were doing stupid shit like my dad would, except there was no evidence of it, so.
A lot of people think we're constantly on our phones, constantly in the virtual world. So in that way, in terms of the real world, they don't really think that we know how to navigate it because we're always like this. That's the age that we grew up in. That's definitely one thing I think that contributes to it.
To assume that an entire generation is lazy is just wrong, because every generation had lazy people in it. Internet addiction and cell phone addiction, we blame the individual for having those addictions when it's natural for humans to be addicted to things.
Dopamine is released when you get likes on Facebook or when you get messages or even just pings of notifications. Like they've done studies and the mind actually gets addicted to it in the same way that it can other drugs or alcohol. And that's why our parents fall into the Facebook hole as well. because it is addictive. You know, it's not just a part of our generation.
It's true that we spend more time thinking about me, what do I want, how do I want to live our lives, but it's just that our parents' generation, they don't have the luxury to think this way.
Because of how readily available planes are, and because of how readily available places like this, you can just book it online. Everything's made simple for us, so I think that's another reason why.
Yeah, it's literally through the touch of a thumb that you can do it, you know.
The social media aspect is having like the comparison of other people, which is, it can be a negative thing, but it can also be like an inspirational thing. Like if you see people doing things and you think, oh, I want to do those things, and I think our parents didn't have so much of comparison to their peers.
Every time I speak to my mom, she's like, did you hear this bad thing that happened in this country?
Media is kind of used to impose a sense of danger and fear into people. It's kind of like a cage, and maybe, you know, the older generations are scared of the new generation of breaking free of that and opposing it.
For a country, it's better if you study something and work. It's like, even in school, everything tells you what to do.
Yeah.
The society, the states, the news, everything.
When you are doing something different, you are saying like, I left my university. Why? I don't want to study, just I want to go to travel or do something another, you know. They will say, oh really, you are bad, why you don't study, you know. They think different already in their mind, like they think like study system, yeah, like study, work, and like that. We are thinking different.
I could give you a list of more than 10 people who are still back at home and they think that what I'm doing is crazy and it's not really the thing that I should be doing or focusing on. And it's not because what I'm doing is a bad thing, but it's because it's not what people are used to doing. It wasn't the idea that was put into our head as we were going into school.
Ever since I chose to go to university and what I studied at university, so much of my life has been dictated about what other people think and what other people want me to do. And I feel now that, I felt for the past couple of years that was a completely wrong way to act. And I wish that I chased some passions earlier.
Our grandparents would have been from the States, would have grown up with the Great Depression, and obviously you guys have issues with that as well. So saving every penny and not wasting it on frivolous, unnecessary things would have been ingrained in them as children and then into adulthood. My parents then would have been raised by that kind of mentality, but they would have been told, oh, now you can spend a little bit more and you can get houses and cars, and so it's bigger, but it's still consumer. And we're still consumers, absolutely, but our consumer material good has changed.
My father doesn't understand any of the shit I do. But I tell him, I look him in the eye, because he gets very frustrated and he feels anxious for me on all these things I do, and I'm just like, Dad, this is what makes me happy, and isn't that most important? I think that's changing, the definition of success and happiness. It's not necessarily how much money you have or the status.
But yeah, I think it's just the way she's brought up, that she's like, oh, I want you to find a job that's stable. And then you work all the way until you retire, and then that's your life.
Yeah, we are really taking our liberty. Like we are choosing to be. Yeah, it's a choice for us to be free. But I think why our parents are supporting us, why the Generation X is supporting us, is because they have regrets. Like they think, okay, yeah, we lived like that, we lived in this normal way, and finally our life was shitty.
Our mindset being, you're supposed to reach this age, get married, have kids, all that sort of stuff. We started seeing that wasn't working really, and decided that we didn't need to do that, and there was better ways to live. And
so not now, we make a family and we have a job, a big house with a dog, with a baby. No.
I think there's a paradigm shift on how to live your life and how to really be happy, that we don't just fall into these cultural norms and what like society has broken down for you on what you should do. This will lead you to happiness, this path. And I think that we're starting to stem out and be like, well, no, not for me. You know, that's not what's going to make me happy.
I think we go against the idea, the structure, the system. When people who go along with that idea, with that system, see that, they get scared. It's like they're scared because they think that's the only way of living, and we are saying no. So for them it has to be wrong what we are doing.
When we were a child, we told us, environment, blah blah, you're free, you can do what you want. and finally not. Like we're the generation that can do everything, but finally not, because we can't do that on that way.
Right.
We are like, freedom, okay.
People did ask me, well, you know that traveling is a good time for retirement. We're in an economy that is projected for the future to not have the same retirement experience as the people who are living in retirement currently.
I mean, I know I'm like a shitload of money in debt from university. There's a housing crisis, everything's super expensive. I mean, my rent in DC is like $1,200 a month, and I live in a 7-person group house, like it's ridiculous. And I'm like 50 plus grand in debt. And that puts a lot of constraints on me where I can't, even if I wanted to have like a house that like my parents had a house at like 30 or something like that. I'm so far away from that. Oh my God, I don't even think I'll ever own a house.
Because it's so hard to do, and you've got to save up so much money to even put a deposit down. Like back home, you have to save up £20,000, and you can't even, it's hard to get a job of $20,000 a year, and then you've got to save, you've got to rent first.
My parents just sold the house that I grew up in that they owned for 25 years, and they sold it for almost twice the amount that they bought it for. So that same exact house that used to be half as much is now not within my capabilities of purchasing at their age.
Actually in China, we young people don't have so much money for cars or for rooms.
Like rent was like taking up between us like 2/3 of our wages. Yeah, and after that then you pay for food, and then we had no time to just do anything, really.
Most people I know that come out of uni, they don't have a job. They've tried, they've applied, but they don't have one. It's a lot easier back then to even get like a kind of fairly crappy job, and then you can progress and you can earn like quite a good wage. I feel like now if you started on some of the similar jobs that my parents started on, you would be earning like absolutely crap money 10 years on, and you'd be absolutely nowhere.
It's the businesses, it's the owners of businesses and companies, factories, etc., who are willing to ditch their entire workforce and then exploit a country which is slightly where the labour is cheaper.
The thing that was fed to me was that if you work hard enough, you can go anywhere and do anything. And that's the beauty of what all of these generations have worked for you. That's not exactly true, because we are fed lies, and that's student debt. No, student debt, that's part of it. It's like everybody can do it. You worked here, get it. 200K, who cares?
For my college education at the same institution that my father went to, I'm paying almost 3 times as much as he did for the same education, and that can't be brushed aside. That has to be acknowledged.
Unless you're working at a really good job, solid from the age of 21 till sort of 65, 70, we're not going to be able to retire. I already know that for a fact. I'm in 44 grand's worth of debt. 44 grand from university, £9,000 a year in the UK. And then you've got living costs on top of that.
I think the previous generations have, unfortunately, they've created a lot of obstacles and barriers for us, and I don't think they fully understand how much we are feeling that as millennials.
And there they were, my answers. We as millennials had been presented the internet as we transitioned from childhood into adulthood. For me, the opposite side of the globe had never seemed untouchably alien. Every day in Los Angeles, Asia was just sitting in my pocket. The idea of going there hadn't seemed insane or irresponsible, but merely a matter of will. And here were 100 strangers, using the same tools as myself to search for personal truths in corners of the world that for generations had been out of reach. And yet, millennials had also lived through a terrible recession. We went to school in the era of skyrocketing loans, decreasing wages, and the climax of the college boom. And most recently, COVID-19, all while gaining the labels of being selfish, entitled, and lazy. And maybe, just maybe, we'd begun asking that if all our money could just disappear, if our generation was going to be saddled with debt, and we were being chastised as the bad apples of human evolution, then was this golden years narrative about how one should live our best life really true? Or had some basic set of human priorities just radically shifted within us? For the first time in history, we had the tools to go in search of those answers. And so that must be what I was doing. Out there asking probing questions to random faces that intuitively they just seemed to understand. It occurred to me that if most of us were seeking such similarly motivated experiences, perhaps being shaped by these common social conditions hadn't just shaped our desires, but perhaps shaped our values. And if that could be true, if a global generation could share common values, What might those common values be?